In today's world, it's never been easier to be successful. There are countless ways you can be more productive and focused. Yet 9 out of 10 businesses fail, and most entrepreneurs around you are just average. If you want to be super productive and super successful, you simply need to do the things that the average entrepreneur isn't willing to do. But the biggest companies out there are bidding billions of dollars to keep everyone distracted and unsuccessful. So to be able to eliminate all distractions and be hyper-focused on your mission, you need to have a strategy. A strategy that will enable you to bypass every distraction around you and be able to lock in like never before. This strategy actually exists. And it's no coincidence that the most successful online entrepreneurs that live the life you want to live follow this strategy on a daily basis. And now I know this firsthand because I've devoted the past 3 years of my career personally working with millionaires and analyzing the things that make them perform at their peak. I've flown out to millionaires all over the world to help them unlock a competitive edge and become super productive with the same strategy I'll share with you in this video. A competitive edge that every entrepreneur needs to have in order to be exceptional in this hyper-competitive world. So in the next 10 minutes, I'll walk you through this little-known strategy that some of the highest-performing individuals in the world use to be able to unlock insane levels of focus and productivity, so you can use it too and never feel like you've wasted a day of your life ever again. You see, how focused and productive you feel every day is not determined by the world, your friends, or by the universe. It's simply by the chemicals your brain sends at specific parts of the day that make you feel focused, tired, productive, or unmotivated. The problem is that most people's brains are just sending the wrong chemical signals at the wrong times, which means that you're waking up feeling tired, you're getting easily distracted throughout the day, and you just can't focus properly on your work. It's because there's a place in our brain that's been designed from evolution to keep us awake, sharp, and productive in the day, and tired, sleepy, and relaxed at night. But the way the average entrepreneur lives his everyday life now disturbs this natural mechanism, and as a result, your brain makes you feel distracted when you should feel energized and sharp. That part of our brain is called SCN, or more commonly known as the circadian clock. Think about the SCN like a timer. What this timer does is that it times the production of energy hormones like cortisol and adrenaline, sleepiness hormones like melatonin and serotonin, as well as productivity chemicals like dopamine and acetylcholine, depending with if it's daytime or nighttime. The SCN needs to time the production of all these chemicals at specific parts of the day, otherwise it breaks and you die. The way it does that is by registering cues from your everyday routine, and using these cues, it's able to recognize a pattern. For example, the time you wake up, the time you go to bed, the time you drink coffee, the time you exercise, the time you eat, etc., etc. So by using these cues, like an AI machine, it's able to predict when it's supposed to be daytime and when it's supposed to be nighttime. But the problem is that inside the brain of the average entrepreneur, this clock is malfunctional. And chances are that if you're waking up feeling tired, are getting distracted often, and struggle to fall asleep at night, your clock is broken. And what you need to do to fix your focus is to reboot your SCN. In simple words, reset the clock in your brain to go from waking up feeling tired, struggling to fall asleep, and not being able to focus, to waking up feeling refreshed, sleeping like a baby at night, and having razor sharp focus when working. And the most important step you'll need to take to reboot your SCN is having an optimal sleep schedule. And no, it's not about sleeping for 8 hours or going to bed at sunset and waking up at sunrise. It's about following the same sleep schedule for 80 to 90% of the time. So you find an ideal time to go to bed every night and an ideal time to wake up every morning. And be careful, you need to make sure you can actually sustain that for 80% of the time at least. So make sure that you establish a sleep schedule that aligns with your work schedule. For example, if you're in Canada but your business works with European clients, you have to adjust your sleep schedule to fit your work schedule, because it doesn't matter if you go to bed at 10 p.m. or 5 a.m., but if you do the same thing for at least 80% of the time. But that doesn't mean that your focus will be at its peak, because the thing that happens inside the optimal sleep schedule, sleep, also needs to be optimal, because the clock in your brain we talked about, the SCN, recognizes cues, and based on these cues determines how focused and energized you feel. And you might have seen a lot of sleep experts talking about the ideal evening routine to get good sleep, but a lot of the information is contradicting and overwhelming. Forget everything you know about your favorite pre-bed routine and just focus on these 3 evening cues, because these 3 things are backed with a ton of scientific evidence to help optimize your sleep and therefore help you be sharper and more focused, while most of the other habits you see on the internet are backed with a lot of question marks. The 3 highest ROI evening cues to reboot your SCN are going to be: 1. Eliminating all regular bright overhead light 3 hours before bed and replacing it with below eye level dim firelight colored lights instead. 2. 3 to 5 hours before bed, stop eating all food. And 3. In the last 1 to 2 hours before bed, only do things that calm you down and help you relax. Now, if sales sales calls or team calls help you relax, absolutely do them, but chances are that you're not going to chill on sales calls. So instead, read, journal, watch a movie, or generally anything that calms you down. You see, optimal sleep will allow you to wake up feeling refreshed and recovered. But what you do with all that energy and focus has nothing to do with sleep, because you might be getting the most optimal Brian Johnson sleep quality possible, but yet when it's time to sit down, open your laptop and work, you're still getting distracted every few minutes. There's this one chemical you have in your brain that decides how focused or how distracted you are when you're working. But the problem as an entrepreneur is that your everyday is literally engineered to keep you distracted from your phone, your social media, and even your work. This happens because you don't understand how to use this one chemical, dopamine, strategically for productivity and focus. But instead, you allow your dopamine to decide how productive each day should be by making you feel bored or not interested in doing the hard work. So what you need to do in order to trick your brain to enjoy hard work is to rewire your dopamine system. You want to think of dopamine like a wave pool. The water level in the pool resembles how focused and excited to do work you feel. When the water level drops, you feel unproductive, distracted, and unmotivated. Now, the thing that you need to know is that there are waves in that pool of dopamine that can happen at any time of the day depending on what you do. And here's a problem. When you have big waves in this dopamine pool, the water level goes down because there is water that spills out of the pool after this big wave. And the bigger the wave, or the bigger the dopamine spike, the more water gets out of the pool, which means the lower the water level gets. So the trick to maintaining extremely high levels of focus and productivity for the entire day is to keep as much water in the pool as possible and maintain the water level as high as possible. And there are 5 main ways to do that. For the first 1 to 2 hours after waking up in the morning, do not use your phone. You see, there is something called neuroplasticity that gets triggered when you first open your eyes in the morning. Neuroplasticity is your brain's ability to change based on experience. And in simple words, the more neuroplasticity your brain goes under, the more you'll be able to train your brain to focus. But when you first open your eyes in the morning is also the time that your brain is the most sensitive to external stimulus. And when the first thing you do upon waking up is replying to DMs, checking your bank account, opening your email, or scrolling on social media, not only you'll create a big wave of dopamine that causes water to get out of the pool, you're also interrupting the natural process of neuroplasticity that gets triggered in the morning. Both things, however, make it substantially harder for your brain to focus later when you start working. The second thing is to use these 2 hours to either lift weights or do some form of movement. One thing that I forgot to mention about how dopamine works in your brain is something called the pleasure-pain balance, or scientifically known as dopamine homeostasis. This simply means that every time you experience pleasure, the scale will then equally tip over to the side of pain. So if you had a lot of fun by scrolling on social media, then this mechanism will kick in and you will feel very low and unmotivated afterwards. But if you did something that was very boring and painful, like hard exercise, the scale will then equally tip over to the side of pleasure. And that's also the exact reason neuroscientists and doctors like Andrew Huberman or Eric Berg talk about how doing cold showers make you feel great afterwards, because you do something painful that sucks, and then this dopamine homeostasis mechanism kicks in to make you feel good and motivated. Number 3, when you're doing dead activities or non-work related activities like working out, like driving to the gym, cooking, or cleaning, do that in complete silence. What most people do wrong, which leads them to lack motivation to work and feel distracted all the time, is that they keep their brain occupied at all times. You drive to the gym, you listen to music. You go for a walk, you listen to music or podcasts. You're eating your meal, you're watching something. In simple words, you don't allow your brain to be bored. And as a result, you keep flushing water out of the dopamine pool continuously and getting the water level lower and lower. As a result, you have way less dopamine circulating in your reserve, and this makes work feel difficult and boring. Instead, when doing non-work related activities, just let your brain be alone and get bored. As a result, you will look forward to get back to work because that's the only activity that rewards your brain with dopamine, and you'll be 10 times more focused while working. Apply the Russian roulette dopamine reward. This is a technique that casinos have exploited for centuries to make tons of money. And as I said, exploit it, because it tricks your brain to keep doing something no matter the results. In other words, this technique is the antidote to instant gratification. It works like this. Every time you have a win or achieve a goal in your life or business, do not celebrate. So for example, if you've been working on launching a product for months and you finally launch it and it does really good, the last thing you want to do is celebrate that win. When you celebrate your wins, your brain then will start associating the win with the pleasure feeling. What you want to do if you want to sustain high performance, motivation, and focus for long periods is to have your brain associate the effort itself with the pleasure feeling. And the way you do that is by randomly celebrating your wins. So sometimes you will celebrate a win, no matter if it's big or small, and most of the time you don't. But be careful, because it won't work if you know when you're going to celebrate or not. So what you can do is have someone else randomly select if you're going to celebrate or not celebrate. At this point, you're going to be able to focus better than the average entrepreneur out there, and as a result, get more work done in less time. However, there is a big difference between good focus and performing at your maximum capacity, because maximizing your productivity and mental performance requires you to look into other things like how you're structuring your daily routine, your diet, your habits, medical tests, energy management techniques, and supplementation protocols. And there's this protocol that I've developed after working with hundreds of online entrepreneurs to help them maximize their energy, focus, and productivity so that they can achieve peak performance and grow their companies. So watch this video here on the screen where I show you what this protocol is and the exact steps you need to take to follow it yourself, so you can also unlock that unfair competitive advantage and become more successful as a result.